Welcome back to Sabbath Conversations. Today we are exploring the impact of Sabbath keeping on our health. Does Sabbath keeping make you healthier? I am Mele, your host.
I'm Alec, your co-host. Today's episode, we welcome Benji, the General Manager of Salim Health Retreats in Western Australia. Benji, we are starting today with some sobering news about the state of our health in Australia.
Thank you. That is right. Many people do not realize that dementia has now become the number one killer in Australia. It is a devastating mental disease that robs us of our memories and our connection to others. To give you an idea of what we're up against in this culture of 24/7 production and consumption, most guests that come to our health retreat are seeking help for mental health problems, specifically depression and anxiety.
Hey, Benji, I read the latest statistics that anxiety disorders are the most common mental health problem in Australia and the world today. Could it be that Sabbath, this ancient Bible prescription, is the antidote for the epidemics of the anxiety and depressive disorders?
Absolutely. Sabbath rest is not just a ritual, it is an existential antidote. It gets to the root of the human condition. Think about creation week in Genesis. For Adam and Eve, the Sabbath was their first full day. They spent their first full day in restful trust, contemplation, and a delightful fellowship with their Creator. They have not produced anything yet. Their worth was not worked for, it was given. That means we're creatures of rest first. Work is meant to be an overflow of a soul that has already been loved and validated and secured in God. Thus, Sabbath addresses the root of anxiety that plagues our world.
Wow, that's completely opposite to our hustle culture, where you have to perform to be valued. I believe if we keep the Sabbath, it will help us from being burnt out.
Paul is the perfect example of what Sabbath can do to your mental health. He knew his origin, purpose, and destiny, and knew that his future was secured not by works but by grace. So, in the midst of extreme stressors, he lived out the Sabbath principle by restfully trusting in God's hand. Imagine the surprise of the jailers and prisoners at midnight when Paul and Silas, who were bound, were praying and singing praises to God. In the midnight of our darkest experience, we can flourish and not languish.
I know Paul was shipwrecked, imprisoned, punished, stoned, and left for dead. If there was any person that should be burnt out, it should be him. However, not all are Christians. What about those who don't believe in the Bible? Does resting on any day of the week benefit their health?
Just resting physically and mentally without any pressure is one of the most common suggested solutions to the problem of burnt out and stress. A study shows that period of rest or retreat to improve memory, attention, motivation, and creativity can benefit anyone.
Yeah, even in the professional world, the idea of sabbaticals exists because we know that without a break from work, a chance to step back and recharge, we get depleted.
Mm. However, there is a big difference between just taking a rest day or secular Sabbath and biblical Sabbath keeping. Studies show that secular rest like sleep, holidays, relaxing activities have a positive impact on health and well being, but the effects fade after individuals go back to their stressful environment. It can help temporarily, but without the Sabbath's spiritual meaning, the big questions of origin and identity, meaning and purpose, morality and destiny remain unanswered.
Hmm. You have looked at several studies about Sabbath keeping and how this practice lower anxiety. Please tell us about the mathematics of rest that you discovered.
Sure, Alec. Research shows that the relationship of Sabbath keeping and human health is mediated, or it has middlemen, and also moderated, or its effects amplified by different things before it can impact our health. When we keep the Sabbath, its health effects go through this process of subtraction, addition, multiplication, and even division before it finally impacts our health.
Let's start with subtraction.
Secular Sabbath rest may be considered a subtraction process, just the act of simply subtracting work and stress from your day, like stopping the emails, chores, and hustle. This provides a basic level of healing, giving your nervous system a chance to move out of fight or flight mode. Necessary, but just the baseline.
Okay, so if stopping is subtraction of the work and stress, what are we adding back to our life during the period of 24 hours?
First, we often support each other during Sabbath, like share nourishing meals, take nature walks during the Sabbath. So, diet, exercise, and social support adds healing to your soul. Although one study about Orthodox Jews found that all participants consuming significantly more calories on the Sabbath were in the overweight and obese categories. So diet can add or subtract the health benefits of the Sabbath rest too.
That reminds me to practice temperance during church lunch. What if just eat well and go for a hike? Does that have the same healing effect as doing it in a community?
Yeah, a good salad and a walk definitely helps your heart, but not necessarily your hurt. The kicker of the study is this: religious support and practice and participation of a Sabbath service in a community have a stronger effect on your mental health than diet and walking. Participating in religious factors like sharing testimonies, praise and worship programs, visiting other people adds healing to your social and mental health. It is about shared experiences, so engage in a community.
So the recommendation is to show up and participate in religious exercise because that is where the social support lives.
Exactly. Here's the fascinating part. The community program provides the environment, but it's the individual spirituality that provides the inner healing experience.
So communal religiosity supports us from the outside, but how does individual spirituality change and heal us from the inside?
It is one thing to be part of a religious system termed as religious coping, but a different thing entirely for your soul to be healed internally, and it is termed spiritual coping. And this adds resilience based on studies. And studies identified at least three pathways that Sabbath keeping heals us internally and promotes resilience. The first is self esteem. By shifting our sense of worth, Sabbath is a weekly reminder that our worth is defined by our being, not our doing.
That is a powerful reframing. It takes the pressure off. What's the second pathway?
It is called personal efficacy, or the confidence that you have the tools to manage stress. Sabbath restricts us from working and reminds us to rest our case with God by trusting His wisdom, His love, and His plan for our life, claiming His promises that heaven has all the resources for you to overcome any stress.
So if we keep the Sabbath, we would all be reminded about our worth and the divine resources available for us to overcome any stressors. Please tell us the third pathway.
Yeah. The third pathway is positive emotions. So Sabbath keeping is tied to feelings of peace, restoration, and comfort. And these emotions effectively map up the negative effect, like stress and worry, accumulated during the week.
Wow, that is a holistic prescription for health. So subtractions get us to the baseline and addition adds us up. How about multiplications and division happen?
Yeah, this is the most powerful and crucial takeaway. I found two factors that can either multiply or divide the health effects of Sabbath keeping. First, study shows that the effect of religiosity on anxiety and depression is moderated by religious tradition. This means that beliefs and practices of the church can either multiply or divide or dampen the impact of Sabbath to anxiety and depression.
Does that mean that if a church teaches a tyrant God waiting to punish us when we break his Sabbath commandment, can actually divide or dampen the health benefits of Sabbath rest?
It may not only divide or dampen, but may negatively multiply the effect to the opposite direction. Religious traditions are not neutral. A legalistic belief on Sabbath keeping can drive the health effect in the opposite direction, creating more anxiety. So, if one's tradition teaches the Sabbath as a rigid list of don'ts, you might be resting in the pew, but your mind is running a marathon of anxiety about how to earn God's favor instead.
So if someone is in a tradition that preaches a legalistic or negative view of God, what can they do?
Very good question, Millie. Studies show that individuals may experience the same negative event but appraise the impact of or severity of this to different extents.
What makes a difference?
It is the attitude you take, which is the last factor that can be a positive or negative multiplier, and it is connected to your mental faculties that make up your choice. As an example, studies indicated that positive feeling toward the Sabbath were associated with better mental health and general health. This may come about by seeking the true meaning of the Sabbath. Conversely, if one just accepts the negative belief, keeping Sabbath out of guilt or obligation, it is associated with poorer mental and general health. Not all Sabbath keeping are equal. The way it is taught by religious tradition and the way it is received, your perception and attitude, determines whether the benefit is multiplied or divided.
Wow, so it gets to the full health benefits of weekly Sabbath keeping. Move beyond the secular to true faith-based Sabbath rest.
100%, you got it, Alec. When you observe the faith-based Bible Sabbath, it becomes a holistic lifestyle medicine.
What a powerful prescription for this anxious generation from our loving God, Creator. Benji, thanks you so much for showing us that Sabbath is not just an ancient tradition, but an essential antidote and a modern pathway to a flourishing mind.
Friends, thank you for joining us. Remember well to keep the Sabbath, and the Sabbath will keep you well.